wonder if you could start maybe by explaining a little bit about your work and your research and how you're interested in the things we're talking about today.
Yes, I'm Creaby-Attwood and I'm a lecturer at the University of Northumbria. I've been in practicing law for a long time before that and came and worked in the law school. My previous law sort of life when I was an advocate was specifically working with people who had committed very serious offences, only murder, manslaughter, rape, arson and serious sexual offences. But the client group I worked with were people who had, it was forensic mental health, so it was people who had some element of the mental health defence there, be that insanity, diminished responsibility, something like that. What I noticed when I was in practice was there was an element, or there was a group of people who had an autistic spectrum condition who we realised were either being missed or if they were being picked up, they were being picked up very late. When I've come into academia, I took that research further and started researching into case law about it. And there are quite a number of cases where we've seen that the autistic spectrum condition hasn't been picked up, and people have been effectively wrongfully convicted because they've then later been assessed, generally in prisons, by psychiatry services within the prisons, gone to appeal, and they've been acquitted.
Right.
That's where my research is taken.
So you're coming from a practice background in law, and you're interested in the autism spectrum and how that impacts on people's experience in the criminal justice system around serious offences.
Specifically around sex offences. The reason, not to get too legally technical, but the reason about it is because within a sex offence you've got to have a specific mens rea, they have to be a specific mental element of sexual gratification, and that's what they found isn't happening.
Okay, that's interesting. And in terms of kind of what we've been talking about today, is there anything that's particularly stood out to you so far that you think is going to be maybe useful or helpful, or anything that's hit you?
Absolutely. The latest piece of research I'm contemplating and I'm just about to do is I'm looking at using barristers, how they take instructions, how they work with their clients who are have an autistic spectrum condition. Particularly I'm looking at Asperger's. What we're finding is, I'm being told now not to use the term Asperger's, that we're using an autistic spectrum condition, but the reason I'm saying that is, in my doing it's high functioning autism, and I know we've gone through all of these terminologies, but the reason I'm looking at that is because it's almost like a bit of a silent,
like a hidden impairment.
It is, it really is, and it's been missed in the court, and often the behaviours are being misconstrued. So we might get someone who may behave very introvert or may appear like they're lacking real remorse for their victims, or that they're very much not interested in the court proceedings, so they think they're a very unreliable witness, and it isn't that at all, but it may be a manifestation of their condition.
In terms of your research, are there issues of capacity and consent that are touching on that particular client group?
Absolutely, because what I want to do is get together barristers and people who do have an autistic spectrum condition and investigate how, on a sort of a, what would the word be? Kind of a pretend, an actor situation.
Like a role-playing situation.
Yeah, sort of. And get them to take instruction from a real case, and so they'll be briefed, both the actors will be briefed, and the barristers will get drip-fed information, just as you would in a real case. And to video it and observe it. But what I want to do is have the actors, who are hopefully people who are from the autistic spectrum or the autistic community, to be within that as research assistants with me. And then they can debrief the barristers as to how they could improve.
And how are you finding the ethical situation in practice about
and that's where I'm
that
coming
group?
across some stumbling blocks, because I think first of all there's misconceptions about people who have autism,
such as
well, I think something, not my university, and I'm not at all saying it's coming from my university ethics, because I haven't even been through there yet, but what I've been told from other people who, when I've mentioned this, they said you might have problems like you have problems with people who have autism because they will struggle with being actors.
The idea of pretending. Because autistic people are seen as literal.
Yes, you might have problems because I've been told autistic people can't lie.
So
we
there's
know
the
that's
idea
not
of
right.
preconceptions influencing what
Absolutely.
people think about what is ethical to work with that particular group.
Yeah, dead on. And also, to take that further, it's become, not only that, it won't work, will it? Because they're not going to be able to pretend, but of course they can.
So the understanding of what autism is said to be, the preconceptions around that, are having an impact on your ability to do your research.
Not yet,
But you think
but I've
that-
been told, when I've mentioned it and talked it around people, I've been told, and also been told you will very much need to debrief the actors, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing.
Yeah.
But it's these things I'm having to take into consideration.
So in terms of like what might help you in the future, have you ideas about particular discussions that you'd like to see happening around capacity and research, or particular training that you think might help you? Or
Well, I'm not certain that people, just because they have an autistic spectrum condition, lack capacity.
so there's that
I think
issue
they
of
don't.
diagnosis and
Yeah.
capacity being linked to people's mind.
Because someone is autistic or has an autistic spectrum condition or has Asperger's, wherever we're putting it. In my mind, I might be wrong. Doesn't mean you've got an immediate carte blanche that they can't be capacitous to make the decision to take part in my research. I have, personally, I think they're more than able to say, this is what I want you to do, this is the actor, this is the role I want you to take. But I might be wrong. Well, I need to get in touch with people and see where I lie. This is where I was really asking you for some advice. Am I way off beam? Am I doing this? Is this the right thing to do? Where do I get people who might want to participate?
And these are all
Is
the
it
kind
a
of
good
questions
thing?
that we need to know that researchers are experiencing. Okay.
And it's also, is this a good thing to do, or is this being condescending? Or is it being liberating and saying to people, I really would like you to help me, and I would like to help me debrief these actors, these barristers afterwards, and tell them what you need when you're in court.